I'm trans. Do you accept me?
Of course.
Excellent. So I should have clarified. I'm not transgender. I'm actually transracial.
Okay.
Do you accept that?
Can you explain what that means?
I actually identify as a Caucasian female.
Okay.
Do you accept that?
I don't know if I understand it.
Well, I decided that I wanted to identify as a Caucasian female.
Okay.
Trust me, honey, the whole point is you'll never be white enough.
Hey guys, my name's Salim Juma, your host of OperationColdFront, and I'm here with
Dion Thompson.
And today, we're going to be identifying as trans. Not the trans you're thinking of, but transracial. I'm trans. Do you, accept me?
Yeah.
Okay. But I should have clarified, I'm not transgender, I'm transracial.
Okay.
I identify as a Latina woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you accept that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, that's your life.
Yeah. So,
you, dude.
if gender is a spectrum, can't race be a spectrum?
Yes.
Does that mean I can take advantage of, affirmative action policies and stuff like that?
I wouldn't say take advantage of, no.
No. But if I self-identify as that, why not?
Oh. Okay, this is a tough question. I was not expecting this. I don't know.
So we're just kind of trying to ask people, if you can change your gender, how far is this going to go?
I feel like it's just so different. Maybe it's different because it's what I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a thing. But I feel like with race, it's just... Race, I feel like, is too far just because there's so much there with each group and so much history and et cetera. I mean, you could argue that for gender, but I think it's very different and, everyone recognizes that it's different. In terms of age, I don't know about all that.
Well, I could identify as a 65-year-old man so I could get Social Security benefits before it runs out.
There's, a lot with that. There's just, I feel like with anything at this point, there's just so much to look into before... obviously you said, transracial, and my first thought was, no. But I'm, I think that in this, day and age, you have to, be more, even
accepting,
if you,
right?
Well, I don't know. Even if you...
Think about it. So,
I don't know.
So
even
let me
if
ask you.
disagree, I mean, you should listen to the opposing viewpoint and try to understand before you try to make a judgment.
So I'm trans. Do you accept me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I should have clarified. I'm not transgender. I'm actually transracial. I identify as a Caucasian woman.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
Can I ask why?
Well, if you can change your gender, why can't you change your race?
That's a good point. I never thought about it like that.
If gender is a social construct, why can't race be a social construct? In fact, I'm pretty sure social justice teaches it is a social construct.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So can I identify as a Native American and get benefits like free college?
Ooh.
It's a tough one, right?
I wasn't ready for this. Well, can you describe the difference between race and ethnicity?
So, I mean, ethnic group is kind of your more nationality, but race is kind of your skin color. Yeah. Well, sort of. Race is your... So, I mean, if you look at those sheets, right, it's white, Caucasian, that's going to refer to all Europeans. Black, African American is going to refer to all Africans. So that's kind of the difference. But ethnic group is going to be more almost nationality, right? Okay. So Ethiopian is going to be a little bit different than Tanzanian, right? Or Chinese is going to be a little bit different than Japanese.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean... It's a
fuck it, right?
Yeah. It's a sticky area. I feel like nowadays you can just honestly just identify as anything. And
I identify as a slice of pizza, pineapple on it.
Me, a helicopter.
Me, Hashi helicopter.
Me, a unicorn.
I'm trans. How do you feel about that?
No particular way.
Okay. Just okay? Yeah. So I should have clarified. I'm not actually transgender. I'm transracial.
Transracial? What does that mean?
It means I identify as a different race than what I look like on the outside.
Okay.
Yeah. I identify as a African American male.
Were you born African American, your parents, or?
No, but my heart says that I'm African American.
Uh-huh.
How do you feel about that?
You do you, man.
The thing I'm wondering, isn't it a bit hypocritical to say gender is a spectrum and accept people who are transgender and say, okay, no worries, you can identify as a man, a woman, non-binary, you can identify as an otherkin, so like a furry or a kitten or a slice of pizza or whatever, but the minute I say I want to identify as an African-American woman, that is a problem. So I'm just wondering, like, where is the line drawn, and isn't it a little bit hypocritical to draw the line there?
I don't know if it is. I think like with the history of like gender and like sexuality and things like that, like before people colonized this area, like Native people had like two-spirit people, and there was no specific like there was man, woman, or like gay, straight, whatever. There were just like so many different identities, and then it's this westernized idea of like man, woman, straight. That's how it goes. And so I don't think that's ever been a thing with like race. Like it's always been like different groups, and like that's kind of how it is. And I don't know, I think that it makes sense that you should be accepting of like that change, because that is something that like has been in place and was like taken away or like trying to be erased by colonized like Western ideals, if that makes sense. So it's trying to like undo the work of like colonization. And we're trying to do that in so many different ways with like institutionalized racism and things like that. So I think this is just the way that gender is trying to do that.
So do you think that, with these new trans age, trans race, stuff like that, do you think that's more divisive, or do you think that actually unifies people?
I think that allows people to be who they feel themselves to be, who they authentically want to be. I don't think that it divides people, because I feel like at that point you can just like accept yourself as who you are, rather than trying to like conform yourself into this. I guess, like instead of like feeling like you need to push yourself into a binary, like letting yourself be who you want to be without the norms like pushing on you and feeling like you need to be someone else.
So question, if I identify as Donald Trump, can I go into the White House and take his Secret Service guys and like run the country?
No, that's no.
So men and women have had different experiences all throughout time, so aren't men who pretend to be women misappropriating women's culture or gender? This is getting confusing.
Yeah, I feel like especially with the whole Kylie Jenner thing, like him being like crowned like Woman of the Year was kind of like disrespectful.
Oh, you mean Caitlyn Jenner?
Caitlyn Jenner, my bad. Sorry, Caitlyn Jenner. Yeah, I feel like that was kind of disrespectful to like women. Like he just like like this rich, like privileged person just became a woman for just like a short time and already got like awarded for it. Like that's like disrespectful for people who've been like.
So inspirational. I'm not actually transgender. I'm transracial.
Okay.
I identify as a Caucasian male.
That's fine.
Who's approximately 55 years old.
You look really good.
I know, right? So the thing we're kind of wondering is, if it's okay to change your gender, is it okay to change your race?
Yes. With that premise, I'll go with that, yes.
Sure. Because if gender is a social construct, why isn't race? I think actually the current thought process is that race is a social construct, right?
Correct.
Excellent. So we can actually do that. So does that mean I can take advantage of affirmative action policies as a transracial person?
I would assume so.
Beautiful. This is working out great.
It's too easy.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that?
Well, we have to build off the premises. And if we have a society or a state, as it is now, that accepts affirmative action, then we have to accept all the ridiculousness that gets added on top of that.
I gotta ask you something. So you're a woman, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about men being in like restrooms next to you?
Like right in like in the same.
Yeah, like the same bathroom, because that's current, I think, state law.
Right.
Yeah. Like if I don't have to actually pass, I can just like walk into the women's restroom and anyone can confront me and be like you look like a man, and I can just be like, no, I identify as a woman, even if I'm dressed and I'm exactly dressed like this. I have a beard. Like.
Right. I think growing up, like I'm originally from Kosovo, so I immigrated to the States when I was about 10 years old. Yeah. So growing up, I was always taught like boy, girl. Yeah. Like that's how it works, even within my own family. So even at UW, actually, I remember 2 years ago when they made like the gender neutral bathroom, anyone can just go in, same stall. When I told my parents about it, they were really uncomfortable with this, especially my mom. She was like, how do you feel? Like she asked me the same question. She was like, how do you feel about a guy who identifies as a woman going pee next to you? And I mean, I feel like it's so hard because we're taught to think, at least I was, okay, like don't go after after 10 p.m. by yourself as a woman because you're gonna get attacked, stuff like that. But I feel like nowadays it's so acceptable, and I feel like no one is going to, like, if you're a guy in the right mind and you don't identify as a woman, you're not gonna go in the girls' bathroom. So that it's just, for me, I give the benefit of the doubt to people. I don't see bad in people. So to me, I don't feel uncomfortable with it. I'm okay with it. I'm not against it. But then again, I feel like society is just kind of...
Are the bathrooms here, because I know at the Bothell campus there are single stall bathrooms. Are they multiple stall bathrooms for the all gender bathrooms?
No, so for the all gender bathrooms, it's just one bathroom.
Oh, okay,
so that's why, I haven't actually experienced like being in like a multiple stall with multiple genders. It's just been, it's a single bathroom.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the issue could obviously arise when you say, okay, both genders can go to the same bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sitting here pissing in a urinal and you're just taking a shit on it. It's like, that's kind of awkward.
How do you feel about like men that identify as women in the women's bathrooms?
I mean, if you're actually, that's the problem, is like if you're actually serious about it, like if you're actually like, like you want to be trans, like you're going through the process, that's okay, I feel like. But if you're like doing it just
because it's like self-identification though. Like I can go in the women's bathroom right now dressed like this and I can go pee and like you can't, if you actually say anything against me, it's discrimination. No, it'll actually get you in trouble.
I know, that's true.
Isn't that kind of like a little bit...
Yeah. So I mean, I know you have single stall all gender bathrooms, but if we had multiple stall all gender bathrooms and I'm pissing in the urinal while you're taking a shit right next to me, how would you feel about that? I mean, that's a real thing.
I'd probably feel a little uncomfortable, not gonna lie.
A little bit.
I mean, I would too, because like, I mean, I don't want to be sitting there taking a piss and then some chick just comes up behind me and goes, I'm taking a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for real, dude.
Yeah, no, that's why I mean I like if it's both gender bathrooms, if it's just a single one, because then it's like it's being open to everybody, but it's also private. You know what I mean? Right.
So with that, do you think it's gotten a little bit out of hand with the whole trans thing? Like, I can just identify as whatever at the drop of a pen.
Yeah, I would say like we were just discussing to a certain extent. Definitely. Like obviously, like there's a whole thing about that. Like it should be justified and like people should have their own right to be who they are. Right. But when it comes to like laws and taking advantage of the system, that's a little different.
The current thought process from social justice is that if you self-identify as a woman, you are a woman. So if I self-identify as an African-American male, I am an African-American male.
God, it's such a complicated question.
We know. That's why we're doing this.
Well, yeah, with the whole, I guess, like, just agreeing with, like, to me, the whole thing about race and stuff is kind of like BS or whatever. I guess I identify more like national identity, where if you're black, white, or whatever, you're born like a certain place and you've like grown up in that culture or whatever, then you have the right to kind of identify as that. If you're born in Japan, raised there your whole life, you can identify Japanese, same thing with like Jamaican or whatever. But I think just like you like born American white person and just say you're black or whatever, I'm not 100% for that.
With people changing their gender and that becoming more mainstream, what's happening now is people are actively, like, I'm not just making it up, there's a Wikipedia page on Transracial, and you can actually change your age, right? So why can't I identify as a 65-year-old man and get Social Security benefits? That actually, there was a man in the Netherlands that is 65 and wants to identify as a 45-year-old so he can get better Tinder matches. So we're coming up with these more and more far-fetched premises. Do you think that this is a component of what's happening in the political spectrum, because there is a huge right-wing backlash both in Europe and here? Do you think that's the left is pushing farther left and the right is pushing farther right, and that's kind of why we're going to more illogical arguments on both sides?
I'll accept some of that. I think the left is joining together. They have one very good talking point, one list of talking points, and they're really coming together around that, and it is pretty far to the left, at least compared to where it was, say, 10 or 20 years ago.
Sure.
The right, I don't think has changed that much. I think they're probably reactive to that polarization and that coagulation of all those left.
I mean, the term conservative means...
Exactly. So I haven't seen a huge growth or a huge spike to the far right. I've seen the right stay pretty much with its values, and there's still a spectrum. You still have the libertarian right, who are pretty different from the more far right.
Yeah.
But they're coming together more because the left has become so impossible to talk to. Like they can't even have this conversation we're having.
So Republicans haven't actually changed their values. It's that they're joining together in an alliance.
That's what I
almost.
think is happening. So you have a larger spectrum of the right, which means a lot more, and that's great. We want diversity of thought. The left has eliminated their diversity of thought, and they're just saying you don't believe that. Well, then you can't be part of our group.
Right. So do you think social justice, which was originally a pretty good concept, I mean, fighting for equality, but do you think it's gotten to the point where when you no longer have diversity of thought, do you think that's kind of a problem, especially in a place where, we're supposed to propel critical thinking, especially on college campuses?
Huge problem. Yeah. It bothers me every day.
It bothers us too. We're college students, and it's...
Yeah. And I work here on this campus, and I...
Do you teach?
No, I don't teach. Yeah.
But it must be frustrating seeing it every day.
It is very frustrating. When I grew up in college, there would be speakers giving totally divergent talks about different things at different areas, and everyone would politely say, I disagree, and then you'd have debates, and it was civil, and people learned, and people could change their point of view.
That's what college was supposed to be about.
It seems like that's gone. And people don't even want to talk about it. Like I was just walking around the quad, and there's no political groups up there. I'd rather see at least a couple radical left than see nothing.
I know.
Which means, wow, it's scary. The conversation has been stifled. It's been shut down.
Yeah.
And I don't have to point fingers and say it's their fault or their fault. I just say we got to do something to change that.
Absolutely. So my final question to you is, how do you feel about so-called anti-fascist groups? So the Black Mass, the Ski Mass, the Black Bloc.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you can figure that we're not a fan of them.
I don't think so.
But how do you feel about what they do? How do you feel about their shutting down of freedom of speech? Do you think they're actually fighting fascism? Or are they LARPing as fighting fascism?
Right.
How do you feel about them?
Yeah, and I've talked. I grew up on the left, very far left. Both my parents were communists, and
it's the hippie generation.
Yeah,
too,
I was there. I probably would have identified with the left all the way into the late 90s, early 2000s.
Sure.
And most of my friends and my family are still there.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of conversations, and so I feel like I have a good understanding where they're coming from.
Sure.
It's easy to get completely wrapped up in what you imagine the enemy to be.
Sure.
It's very easy, and it feels good in a way to be tribal.
Yeah.
It's empowering.
You have family watching your back.
Right, exactly. And I think they've just gone a little too far in that direction. They've created this reality which the media has helped manufacture. They encourage each other. There's a lot of bubbles on the web, and they're living. In my opinion, they are living in a fantasy world. They are LARPing.
Yeah.
And they are in another reality that we have a hard time getting through, and they don't want to hear anyone who will potentially poke that bubble and expose them to a truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think kind of like the old school left, so people that are coming from like the 70s and 80s are kind of saying, maybe going into like more of a left-leaning libertarian aspect, or maybe not even a party, but just kind of saying we're washing our hands of whatever is going on with progressivism these days?
I think some are. I don't know. I think some of them are following the train to the left, and I think some of them who think more critically and are able to question things along the way are probably going to that direction of the libertarian. Yeah.
Sure. Dion, do you have anything else?
Yeah, so, with the struggle with the political clubs on this campus, I'm from the University of Washington Bothell, and I've tried to start a conservative organization, and I've gotten so much backlash from the administration, and that's illegal. It is literally illegal. So, you've obviously seen that conservatives have a really tough time of trying to do anything. Like you look at the bake sale that just happened, and they're being called racist. All these different ist and ism words, and then the left has their Polynesian culture event, and they don't get called nothing, which is good. I don't want them to get called anything, but when the Republicans get called names like that, where does the hypocrisy lie there? You know?
Yeah. Well, like I was saying before, if you follow their thinking, their line of thinking, if you are not on their side, you are a fascist. You are promoting violence. You are promoting hatred. You are promoting divisiveness. You are demeaning. You are hurting feelings. They've isolated everyone that's not them into a place where they can demonize you.
Right.
And once they have demonized you, they can do anything they want to you.
Right.
And they don't feel any sense of
Guilt. You are
yeah,
now
there's
subhuman.
nothing. Exactly. It is only a matter of steps before they can jail you or hurt you. And
It's already happening in England.
Yeah, and that is terrifying to me that we would do that, especially in an institution of higher learning.
Where
absolutely.
we're supposed to be talking about things.
Yes.
Gosh, this is a great interview, man. Honestly,
Great talking to you.
I mean, it's great talking to college kids and
Thanks a lot.
everything, but
Absolutely.
I mean,
Don't get me fired, though.
No.
No, you're fine.
I want to tell you guys to go check out our Patreon. I want you guys to go check out our Venmo and our PayPal, because we can only continue to bring these shoots to you if we have funding to do so. We have to pay for security. Antifa is stalking and hunting us like the cowards they are, and we need funding to pay for stuff. So, Dion, you want to go into what we...
Yeah, so funding for stuff like he said, security and equipment, such as camera equipment and audio equipment as well. So, make sure you subscribe to our Patreon.
And not only that, we also do live streams on Thursdays where we answer people's questions and things like that. So you can actually support us through that as well. And then also our personal social medias are going to be the Muslim Republican on Instagram, the Muslim Republican on YouTube and Facebook, and also a Real Salim Juma on Twitter. And then you can follow Dion at
DoseOfDion on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook, and YouTube.